Happy birthday to Rebel. Happy birthday to Rebel. Happy birthday, dear Rebel Business School. Happy birthday to you. Can you believe Rebel Business School is 10 years old? The Rebel Entrepreneur Podcast is 3 years old. We are aging. We are getting old. But that means we might have some stories to tell and some things to share. Welcome to a very special episode of the Rebel Entrepreneur Podcast. The extraordinary belongs to those that create it. Rebelling against business plans and debt, rebelling against what society expects of us to build cool businesses, make money, have fun, and do good. Let's create something extraordinary together. Welcome to the Rebel Entrepreneur. So welcome to the show, and to celebrate 10 years of the Rebel Business School, who else would I do it with other than my business partner, my socio, Mr. Simon Payne.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of you or met you in my life.
Welcome back to the show. It's good to have you here.
Great to be here. Wouldn't miss it.
No. Can you believe this little thing we started 10 years ago has become a global movement? Can you believe we're even here, Simon?
It's absolutely insane, Alan. I can't. And it's so interesting. I regularly have conversations with people about, hey, look, if you've got a vision, great, but just go and sell one thing. Who knows where that's going to take you? Who knows what's going to happen? And I don't ever remember us having a conversation about, a vision for the future, particularly. I know there was we wanted to do some cool stuff, but I think all of the focus was just in selling one, getting one delivered and seeing if we liked it and what we learned. And 10 years on, we're almost a grumpy teenager of a business. No, I can't believe it, actually. I feel very grateful and humble. It's been a life-changing experience for me, for you, for the people that have joined us on the journey, for the members of the team, and people that have been through the courses as well. So I'm feeling quite reflective and a little emotional, Alan.
Oh, Simon, we all love you. It's going to be okay. I think we've come a long way. Where that's got us to is you're in Birmingham with Henry and Jack, and I'm in Mexico on the beach with Katie, which I'm sure you got the better deal there.
It's similar.
And let's go back right to the beginning, because I think there's some interesting bits. And everyone listening to this, all you Rebel Entrepreneur fans probably know my side of the story about me writing a letter to the British government and complaining about the quality of their business link service and how they nearly put me off starting a business by forcing me to take a loan and go into debt and write a business plan and all that jazz. You all know my side of the story, but I thought it'd be interesting to start with Simon's side of the story. So Simon, I think you were just sat at your desk at work one day when all of this began, weren't you?
Minding my own business, Alan. Literally minding my own business. You know what? I got hired by the government service that you're talking about in 2008 because they realised that they were failing to reach a disadvantaged audience. They were failing to provide a service whereby people that were unemployed, people that came from different racial backgrounds, from different communities, people that were single parents, people that were disabled, kind of society's marginalized folk, they realized the service wasn't reaching. So I got hired by, and we were very, very proud of being the naughty side of Business Link. We were the ones that did things differently, that operated in a very different way. And at one point I towed a giant TV screen onto a council estate in Portsmouth and connected an Xbox to it and put Portsmouth v Man United on the screen as an experiment. Would that get people out of their houses? Would young people turn up and go, what the hell's a giant TV screen? I did all sorts of random stuff like that. And it was a brilliant time, actually. But when my boss came up to me, she's a lovely lady. We're still kind of in touch now. Lovely lady called Deborah. Deborah's walking towards me. with holding pieces of paper, right? She's making a beeline for where my desk was in this sort of big open plan office. And I saw her coming towards me. I thought this would be an excellent time to do up my shoelace. Right.
Hide.
So I bent down, if only you could see me. I bent down under the table. I started doing my shoelace up like this, and she was standing over me. Simon, what are you doing down there? I'm like, oh, hi, Deborah. And she handed me this thing. She said, I've had a letter from somebody. It's gone to Glenn. Now, Glenn was the guy responsible for buying the Business Link service on behalf of the British government. And his name's Glenn. Glenn sent me this letter. Someone called Alan Donegan wrote him a 3-page handwritten letter telling him how crap Business Link was. And because Alan lives in Hampshire, it's our responsibility to see if we can sort him out. I said, well, when you say sort him out, what do you actually mean by that? She said, well, have a read of the letter. And I said to her, like, who the hell writes a 3-page handwritten letter in 2008? Like, we've had email for a good sort of 10 years by now, 15 years. Has he not heard of a computer? Can he not write an email like every other normal human? Why has he written it down? So I read this letter and I thought, blimey. I think that we have a saying where I'm from, which is, it's just called a hospital pass. Right? So this is the kind of pass that's going to get me injured. So anyway, I took the letter. I can't remember what happened. I think maybe I rang you or emailed you. We arranged to have coffee in a well-known cafe in Winchester in the UK. And I trundled up the M3 to go and see you that day. And I arrived, and I remember you were sat at the back of the shop, busily working away on your laptop. And this was to become a scene that is now imprinted on my eyelids because I've seen that so many times in the last 10 years. But you were working on your laptop. You saw me come in. You guessed it was me. You sort of stood up, took a deep breath. You know, you're a big guy, Alan. You know, take a deep breath, your shoulders back, and your biggest smile on your face. And you opened your arms and you shook my hand and you said, Simon, what can I do to help you? But first of all, let's have a coffee. And I remember being really confused. Like, I mean, the coffee bit was the easy bit, but why are you asking if I need help? You're the one that wrote a 3-page handwritten letter, pal. You're the one that needs the help, not me. I'm fine, thank you very much. You know, and I've only told that to a few times to our courses, but there was something very disarming, and I didn't take that as a throwaway line. I felt that you genuinely meant it in that moment. Now, whether you did or not, who knows? You'll probably tell me in a minute. But yeah, and that's where it started. And I remember I told you that at the end of that conversation, I remember saying there's a book you have to read because we talked and you hadn't read it. There's a book you have to read. It's called The 4-Hour Week by Tim Ferriss. It's right up your street. I think you should read that. We decided on a few actions for both of us. You said, right, I'm going to go away and do this, this, and this. And I said, right, I'll go away and do this, this, and this. And that was the start of our friendship hour, which then we ran a few business projects together before Rebel happened, but that's where it all began.
That's where it all began. And I remember sitting in those cafes talking about how education doesn't teach you what you actually need to know to be successful. And that was my big bit, is school didn't teach me how to run a business or teach me sales or marketing or presenting or communication, didn't teach me any of the things I use on a day-to-day basis. And neither did Business Link. They did more to put me off helping. And we should teach people what they really need to know to get going. And that was my big thing. Like, I want to help. We want to teach. And I think our first idea was you and I were going to start an actual business school. And at that point, it was going to be called Rebel Business School. And we were writing plans and thinking about how we could get a building. And the random guy from IBM, who I love, and I can't remember his name, got us a logo for the Rebel Business School.
Kalian. His name was Kalian.
Yeah, he was amazing, full of energy. And we're like, let's start it up. So we drew up this plan. And the plan said we needed to borrow £250,000 to start to start a business. And I'm like, we're back in the same place, borrowing money. We can't do this. We should borrow someone else's spaces and just pop up, Simon.
Yeah, I remember that, Alan. I remember the conversation. Like, let's just pop up, and I think we both kind of went, ding, the pop-up business school.
Business school.
let's park the rebel thing for now, and let's just pop up. It's really interesting. I think the bit that I didn't know, and I think this is for a number of reasons why we clicked, both in terms of our personality, our complementary but different skill sets. But the bit that I did know was that if you're finding business a little harder because of your starting point, and or because it's the first time that you've had a go at business, I knew that business plans and money wasn't the right place to start, because I've run a few business projects prior to that with mixed success. And the very first one I call my £23,000 MBA, because I learned loads about starting. But that's what taught me. I had a giant list of things that don't work. But what I saw, and I think that's how I got into it. I was like, well, in 2008, when I got hired to be an enterprise coach, I'm like, this is brilliant. I can teach these people all of the things that I got wrong so that they don't make the same mistakes. They can make new ones. And then they can ring us up and tell us, hey, Simon, I've made a mistake. And that's how I got started. So I knew. And here's the thing. I'm going to say something that's going to be prickly on the ears of anyone that works in business support in any kind of way. Business plans are used as a tool to get rid of people that you don't know how to do, don't know what to do with them. Mm-hmm. To go away, write a business plan because I've run out of ways of helping you. Go away and speak to a different organization because I haven't got the skills or the knowledge to be able to help you start. Business plans are like I'm just going to park you over there because you ain't ever going to start a business, are you? And that it just sort of used to send people away. Now, so I knew that business plans were the wrong tool, but I didn't know the opposite. I hadn't figured out what the opposite was. And I think that's the thing that you'd figured out. And that the two together, between us, we knew how to engage the disengaged, and we knew how to help people that were coming into business for the first time. We knew a bunch of stuff, and we knew what the opposite of starting a business with a business plan and how to actually do it without money. The two things together, plus a lot of coffee, that's how we got going, right? That's the bit that was the big learning for me. I'm like, wow, what do you mean use your customers' money? What? Oh yeah. Wow, that's the answer,
I was on a big sell before you create drive. That was and I say it a lot more eloquently now after we've reflected on it for many years. But that was the thing, was like, sell it before you build it, get their money, and then use it to do it. And I said to you, why don't we do that? Let's sell something. And at the time, there was austerity in the UK. And there were all these sorts of measures. You said to me, the only people who've got money left are housing associations. We should sell a course to housing associations. And at the time, I had a fledgling business where I was making okay money. By the time we got to this point, selling presentation skills training, time management training. And one of my clients was a housing association down in Weston-super-Mare, Liance Homes. And I'd met most of the people there because I'd run a lot of courses for them. And I said, well, let's go and see if they want to buy it. I'll set up a meeting. So I set up this meeting with a guy called Michael Williams. If you're listening to this, Michael Williams, I very much doubt you are, but what a start that was.
It was in a hotel somewhere off the M5, wasn't it? I seem to remember.
Yeah, and there was another lady there as well. But anyway, we went down and had this meeting and we talked about how to help people. And for whatever reason, Michael Williams had been trying to work with the local equivalent of Business Link, and it hadn't necessarily worked. And he said, your course sounds great. Send me a proposal. So we wrote him a proposal, didn't we? Which was like, we could do a 1 week course. I think it was like a 3-day course, a 1 week course, or a 2 week course. And I heavily priced it so he would go for the big version, the 2 week course. And I was quite surprised. He went for the 2 week course. and we set it up, and that was the first ever pop-up business school. Michael Williams, if you're listening, thank you for believing in us, because this global movement wouldn't have started. Maybe someone else would have believed in us eventually, but you gave us a start by giving us the cash, by doing it. And I remember asking, can we have the cash up front? And he looked a bit confused. Why do you want the cash up front, Alan? This is a bit irregular. And I said, well, it would just help secure the dates. And he said, well, yeah, I can get it out in this tax year. And he paid us up front, and we got the money, and we set the date for October 2012, wasn't it? October 2012 was the first ever one.
Actually, I think his eyebrows made a sound that he frowned so hard they crinkled. He had a crisp furrow.
Yeah,
he did.
Still gave us the money up front.
He did. He trusted us enough. We'd had plenty of meetings by then, and phone calls and email back and forth, and we were shaping it with him, I think, which accelerated the trust. Because I remember sharing all the different titles of all of the different days of the 2-week course, which of course we were making up as we went along. Like, it was our best guess of what sounded cool. The content was probably kind of the same, although who knows, because we hadn't written it yet. But we were sharing those, like, we could run this, we could run that. And he kind of cherry picked the ones that he liked the sound of the most. And then we added our thoughts. And then before you knew it, there was a 2-week course co-created. All that we needed to do now was write and deliver the thing, I suppose. And I think we had the money in our account for about 6 months before we'd even written the course.
Exactly. And the key thing was filling it with people. That was the biggest challenge. Like, how do we get people engaged? How do we get it out there? We learned so many lessons about promoting courses and getting people to turn up. I remember inviting you to my flat in Basingstoke to sit on my cream leather couch, and we forgot to check the background. And if you ever watch our first ever YouTube videos, it has all my dirty dishes in the background. Well, I think they were clean dishes. But anyway, we filmed a bunch of YouTube videos. We promoted it on Facebook, shared it everywhere. And 40 people showed up to that first course. Do you remember, like, being there an hour and a half before the course in a very strange woodworking workshop type space on the Bourneville estate in Weston-super-Mare, thinking, what are we doing? Is anyone going to show up? I was faffing about sorting the flip chart out, putting projector up, like trying to keep myself busy so I didn't panic that no one was going to show up to this first course. And we were just praying that people would show up. They'd signed up for tickets, but that doesn't mean they'll show up.
For sure. And I think the that dusty, disused community space at the back of a woodworking warehouse in a recycling centre on the edge of an estate, I mean, it didn't scream prestige. You know, it's I'm not even sure if anyone knew that it existed up until we ran that course, to be honest. But
No.
I remember, do you remember there was a couple of people from the housing association there? There was a lady who was a champion darts player, and then there was a guy called Sam who was like the video guy for the housing association.
Linda.
They were just
Sam.
Yeah, Linda. They were just as engaged as anybody.
And
they did the whole course, and they helped us. And I think what was amazing was the mix of people, backgrounds, capabilities. We had someone that was being made redundant from corporate world, Tony. We had someone else that was a yoga teacher. You know, we had someone that was a recycling expert. We had an artist, a photographer. We had a fire safety guy, Graham, who came with his
Graham Storer. Dennis, the recovering
first
addict.
prophet. The first
prophet, and the lasagna story that I told at every single workshop for like the next 8 years.
Still telling it now.
It was just wonderful. It's like sell before you create, sell. And we learned so much. I think what I loved about that course and what I learnt to love was you and I just had those people, and every day we would teach them something and they would tell us their problems. And then in the evening over curry, we'd be going, how do we solve this? How do we fix it? What are we going to do tomorrow that helps unlock them, make progress? And that energy of creation, I think we turned up just wanting to help people make progress. And that's still the key principle of the whole of Rebel Business School is I don't care, really. Don't tell the sponsors. I don't care if you want to start a business. I just want to help you make progress.
I think this is. I've been thinking about this an awful lot lately because of some of the corporate partnerships that we're developing, and the thing for me is, let me tell you a quick story. So Kim in the team who does our marketing at Rebel, Kim went along to a meeting with a bunch of other organisations that either work in or are connected to business support in a particular part of the UK. I won't name it yet. In all the excitement, I choked. So what happened was somebody said during the call, one of the professionals said on the call, "Oh, so you don't work with proper businesses then?"
What?
Yeah, right. It's so interesting, and I think this is the fundamental thing for me. What we're doing, and I don't think I've ever understood this in so much depth before. We're redefining what it means to be an entrepreneur. Because the sector says you're only an entrepreneur if you start a certain kind of business in a certain kind of way that's going to create jobs, that's going to add rapid value. And it ignores the people who want to be entrepreneurial, come up with an idea, make their own money. And for some people, making an extra $200 a month is actually a life-changing number. It ignores them. Because these are the people that don't need a business plan. These are the people that don't need money. And maybe some of them will go on to create a bigger business in the future. But for most people, they just want freedom, right? And I think when we showed up just wanting to help anybody in the room make as much progress in their lives as they possibly can with an entrepreneurial mindset, regardless of what they came up with, what they decided to do, what they created. That to me was the magic of it, because we're properly building it around the people who come, not someone else's agenda. You know what I mean? I'm getting a bit ranty. I'm getting ranty, Alan.
So what did you learn running that first course, Simon? What?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing, Alan. I tell you, I remember my very first learning experience on that course was I stood next to you at the front. You were more of a seasoned presenter at that stage, and were kind of leading the start of the session, which I was quite happy about because I didn't know what the hell to say. And you stood up next. I'm stood next to you. I remember the moment that there's 40 people sat down, and you said, "What's stopping you?" Right. And I remember looking at you going, "What the hell are you doing asking them questions?" and you seemed to know what you were doing. And I was thinking, I was absolutely distraught. I'm like, "You're asking them questions, Alan. What if they say something that I don't know what the answer is? Stop asking them questions." And then that was my first learning experience, the fastest way to engage an audience. And actually working with you in those early days actually taught me a whole bunch of lessons about holding the attention of a diverse audience for 6 hours a day, every day for 2 weeks. Very quickly, I learned how to master presenting and facilitating and training and mentoring. I'd done a load of coaching, but not that much in front of a group. So that was super. And that was my first learning experience. I got a whole bunch of other examples, but what about you? What was the thing that you learned from that?
Well, I think it was the biggest thing I learned from that very first course was we spent 2 weeks teaching them you don't need money to build a business. Sell, do this, do that. There are a million ways to start without cash. Then the Housing Association came in the end and go, "We've got up to 500 quid to help you get going." And they immediately ditched everything we taught and went for the 500 quid because it's the easiest way is to get money just being handed out to do it. And the amount of times that happened to us, I remember in Croydon, the MP for the area came in at the end of the course. I'd spend 2 weeks teaching a course how to start a business for free. And they turned up and going, "We're going to make it easier for you to access money to start your business." And everyone was clamoring for their details. And I wanted to rip my hair out. I wanted to stop the whole thing and go, "What are you doing?" Human nature is to take what is the perceived easy route. However, the perceived easy route is you get the 500 quid, you spend it, and then you're back to the position you would have been in the first place. So why not skip that pain, skip that debt, and just start with sales? But no one really wants to do that because it's perceived that's the easy route, that's the better way to do it. That's what you would do if you're a proper business, is borrow some money, all that stuff. And people want to take the easy route. And you lay out the other route and they just don't want to take it. And no matter how much you help, how much you show, there are some people who will literally say, I will not do that. I will only borrow money to start my business. And that was my biggest learning. Like, some people we unlocked and changed their lives. They just, it's unbelievable what's happened to them. And like, when we put the post out about 10 years old, Rebel Business School, I think 7 or 8 of the people from that very first course messaged me on that post saying, oh, I was there, I was sat in this row. And I was like, I remember you. I remember you sat there.
There was Chris the biker, there was Asher, there was Jackie Thompson. Yeah, just amazing.
Jackie Thompson. She found her husband because of the course.
We over-delivered on that. We over-delivered.
Or under-delivered, I don't know. Anyway, running that course changed everything for us. However, you disappeared afterwards, Simon.
I did, yeah. I think I had no money. I was literally, like, I was 3 months away from not being able to pay bills and pay rent and all that stuff. And
I didn't know that.
No, and I think, do you know what? I don't ever remember us consciously going, we're starting a business. I remember us going, we've got this cool idea. We've both got loads of energy for it. Let's see if we can sell one. And I think one of my biggest learnings, I think it was through fear, is that I tentatively sold, rather than going all in to sell. And actually, the other challenge, of course, is whether I went all in or not, we're still looking at a 3, 4, 5 month sales cycle minimum, especially as we were doing something innovative. There wasn't anyone doing what we were doing with the audience that we were doing it. And there still isn't anyone that I've come across that teach in anywhere near the same way that we do, and which I think is quite remarkable. And I kind of like that. Hopefully no competitors are listening to this podcast. Otherwise, we're giving them all of our secrets away. Bugger off and go and listen to a high performance podcast or something. Don't listen to this anymore. It's going to get really boring. But that's the bit for me. I was scared. And also, so this was in 2012. So my son was 13. Yeah, my son was nearly 4. My youngest son, my middle son was nearly 4. My eldest was something like 9, and not being able to pay bills and so on. And actually, I remember at the same time, so I was working, I had a short-term role. It was supposed to be a long-term role, but I got hired as head of entrepreneurship for a very well-known college. In fact, at the time, it was the top performing college in the UK. They hired me as head of centre for entrepreneurship. And I was excited for that because they were going to give me some resources. They were going to give me a building. They were going to let me loose on the young people of Portsmouth in the UK to start businesses. And very quickly, I realised that some of what they told me was a lie. The culture was horrendous, and I jacked the job with nothing to go to, whilst working on this project with you and trying to do a little bit of freelancing here and there and get the money in. And I realised I was going to run out of cash, so I took a job. I got hired, and I'm grateful for that job for 2 reasons. One, because it saved me money-wise, because it helped me earn proper money again, got my career back on track. I learnt loads, but of course it meant that it's just funny. I said I can start my job, but in 2 weeks' time, I have to have 2 weeks off. Like, that's a bit of a weird way to start a job. And I said, well, it's either that or I don't start until November. You choose. Because I've committed to something. I've told my friend Alan we've created something together, and for me not to turn up and co-deliver that with him is not in the question. So take me or leave me. And that was, I sort of rolled the dice a bit because I was like thinking, I've just been hired and now I'm telling you that I can't start for 3 months because I'm busy working on a different business. Like, it was a bit of a hard sell. But for me, not showing up for you then, and that's what it was for me. I didn't feel like it was something that I really wanted to do it, but that wasn't my driver. My driver was to show up for you.
Oh, I love you, Simon. And it was
Nothing
kind of
more.
bittersweet, wasn't it? Running that course, having such an amazing time, and then you going off for a job. And then the next Monday, I'm sat at home going, okay, what next? And you got this massive come down from running that course, the certificates at the end, the celebration, the MP came. The MP was like, this is amazing, this is incredible, should be everywhere. And there was one long list of MP, for everyone listening from the United States of America and other countries, is member of parliament, and it's like your local representative. So I guess it's like a senator or something like that. They would show up, they'd always tell us we were amazing, and then they would never do anything, and you'd never hear from them again. And that's happened throughout everything that we've been doing. And
Fact.
yeah, I just remember like the Monday afterwards going, okay, that's ended. Simon's gone and got a job. What do I do now? And I had to kind of like figure out where to go, what to do, how to start. And I remember watching a Gary Vaynerchuk video about how to sell on Twitter. And I was like, I'll give this a go. So I spent a long time selling on Twitter, and I sold the next pop-up business school through Twitter. And it was an event in Poplar, and I had to find someone else to run it with me. I don't know if I asked you to like run
No,
the
you
next
didn't.
one or whether no. I just like Simon's gone. I need someone else to come and help me. And there's this guy called Mark Gittos. He'd run NLP courses. I liked him. He was a little bit crazy, but I liked him. And he agreed to run the next course with me. And we went up to, it was in Poplar, the housing association in Poplar. And it was the biggest course. Like, it was a massive monumental moment. We had 100 people show up, Simon, 100-person course right at the beginning. It was huge. And it toured around this estate in East London. We had a different venue every day. It was just insane. And Mark Gittos ran it with me. He was incredible with people. He used to smoke, so he would go outside and smoke with people at the breaks and help fix their problems. And I would see the other people who stayed inside, the non-smokers, and chat to them and help them launch businesses. I hired a comedian who'd crashed out of corporate life to do a speech about how to get out of corporate life. Jan Jacks. She delivered a really funny talk, and we made people laugh, and we tried loads of innovative stuff. And I loved that course with Poplar. I started running a few more with Mark Gittos. And then we were growing. We did the second one in Weston-super-Mare. Michael Williams loved it, didn't want to pay us anymore, which, considering we'd kind of made a loss more or less on the first course we'd run, because we didn't make enough money to properly live, and we needed to earn more to do it. And that was a challenging negotiation, but we did the second one. And then things really started to change. And we had the meeting at Downing Street. My friend Ashley got us a meeting at number 10 Downing Street with the Prime Minister's special advisor. And that was a huge, huge moment.
You wore a suit for that.
I wore a suit. We went up. And I remember like going through the special barriers with all the armed police officers, and then into 10 Downing Street. And you're made to leave your telephone in one of these little cubby holes at the front, because you can't take telephones in there. And they guided us through this office to wait for him. And the office was Maggie Thatcher's old office. And it still had one of her pictures on the wall. And it was one of those paintings, those paintings that no matter where you are in the room, it's like they're staring straight through your soul.
That's because she is actually behind the picture. It's her actual eyes watching you. It's not a painting. It's like something from the Addams Family. It's like an actual human behind there.
Oh man, and that was a game-changing meeting that led to another project in London. It led to an introduction to Ernst & Young, which I never managed to turn into anything. And it led to an introduction to the Department of Work and Pensions, and all came through networking, that particular thing, which, like, at that stage, like, things were growing, and my training business was going really well. I was training Microsoft how to present, communicate. I did a course called Coaching for Presence for them for about 10 years. I was making good money. I hired Henry. Talk about the biggest mistakes I've ever made.
Love
That's
Henry.
a joke, Henry. I love Henry. I hired Henry, the first person I'd ever hired. He would help me do my receipts and build websites and stuff like that. And things were starting to come together. And I remember reaching out to you and setting a dinner and saying, like, we need to chat. Will you come to Milton Keynes and meet me at an all-you-can-eat buffet to talk?
That was your strategy, is to offer me all of the food and sort of get me into a comatose gluten state, and then hit me with a proposal, which was so interesting. And yeah, it was a great evening, that one. The food was a little questionable. I don't think,
Food was rubbish. I apologize for that restaurant. It was dreadful. It was the lowest quality food you could possibly imagine let's never go there again.
I had high hopes though, because when we were in Weston-super-Mare, I think we had curry every single night.
We did.
I turned back semi-fluent in Punjabi by the end of that course because we had so much curry. So yeah, that was that. Yeah, you got me back, and it was interesting because at that time, it was the job that I was doing was very challenging. I got promoted, was making the most money I've ever had in a job. I was traveling all over the world, staying in 5-star hotels in New York, in Singapore, in Madrid, traveling everywhere, and really kind of, well, I was working with some of the world's most famous brands at a senior level. So it really taught me a whole bunch of things about how big corporations worked, and I was teaching collaborative leadership. So I learned a whole bunch of stuff about collaboration and about leadership. It really was fascinating. I learned loads. But also, I was getting increasingly unhappy, and I couldn't figure out why. And it was interesting because within about probably 2 months, 2 or 3. It was March, I think, March 2015. Within 2 months of leaving that company, I swapped raffles in Singapore for a community centre in one of the roughest parts of North London, and I was thinking to myself, how did this happen? Like, where's my cocktails? No one's delivering my cocktails here. And we did a photo shoot during that time as well, we looked like a really bad pop band, you, me, and Henry. But yeah, no, good times, interesting times, very challenging because it was. I got on very well with my old boss, and I enjoyed the work. It was challenging work, and I think he was gutted that I was leaving, and I was kind of gutted in a way, although I was desperate to come back to finish what you and I had started, but it was really hard to leave. It was a bit of a wrench. And I think a lot of the reason, looking back, was just my own fear and uncertainty of going back to a place of, where's the money coming from? We got to get out there and sell, kind of thing. So it was a very difficult time. My ex was pregnant with our little one as well. So not only had I left this high paying job in a 5-star hotels around the world, my ex was pregnant with our third child, and I was spending most evenings rocking gently, staring at the living room wall.
Well, I remember asking you the question in that Milton Keynes buffet saying, how much do you need to come back? What do you need? Do you remember me asking that?
I do remember that, yeah. That was over the dinner table.
Yeah, you did some quick maths in your head. I saw you disappear for a second, and you said 12 grand. And I was like, okay. And I sent you 12 grand by transfer. And then it took you at least a month to quit your job to come. And I'm like,
Oh, did it?
hello, I sent you the money. Are you coming? What's going on? It was like at least a month. I was like, hello, hello, hello. Are you coming?
If only I was bolder, Alan. I could have rung you from Singapore. Alan, thanks for the 12 grand, but I'm not coming back.
I'm never coming back. And then you and I were on the sales train. Let's see what we can sell. Let's see what we can bring in. I went all in. We put everything into one business. I put all my training business into it. We went all in, and that was the big start. That was the big start. And I'm so glad you quit. You took your time over it. You made me sweat for at least a month before you quit your job.
Yeah.
But then we were all in. And that was the real start of, I guess, pop-up business school. Like, we'd made huge progress. We'd learned a lot. But that's where we really committed to building it. And I remember setting out that plan for, we wanted to sell 25 courses at 20 grand a course to get 500,000 turnover. And that was the plan. That was where we were headed. We didn't hit that for several years afterwards, but that was the dream and the goal. It took us 3 years to do it.
In 2 years, we got there in 2 years almost. We didn't quite, but I think
It's like 480 in 2 years.
Yeah, and then but by the time we got to 2018, we were delivering about 38, 39 courses a year, and we were delivering them in America as well as the UK, and one or two other exotic locations cropped up too. But in terms of the actual our team, our core team delivering stuff, we were flying to America and doing bits and pieces as well as what was happening in the UK, which is kind of cool.
So I really want to know, and I'm sure everyone listening to this does, Simon, like, what did you learn from this experience of setting up Pop-Up Business School, which then became Rebel? What did you get out of it? What was the friction points working with me towards this that caused pain? How have you stuck with me for this long?
I think it's
That's a longer pause than I would have wanted.
No, I was just thinking, like, what is the reason I'm stuck with you?
Exactly.
What a bloody good question that is, Alan. I don't know. I'll have to ring my therapist and find out what she wrote in her notes. Do you know what? I think that's a big question you've asked me. I've gone all reflective because what have I learned? That's a whole nother episode in itself. I think having a front row seat whilst 20,000 people from all walks of life, religious backgrounds, starting points, capability, education levels, life challenges, mental health problems, and languages and so on, facilitating a learning journey for them whilst they figure out how to make massive progress in their lives. And so for some of those people, watching them go through a life-changing experience has been amazing and a privilege, but also alongside that, the learning journey that we've both been on, and how both of us have got this mindset of, well, it's just results. Some things are good results, some things are great results, and some things are terrible results, but they're all results. And you and I relentlessly plug the learning back in to the courses, to how we deliver, to what we deliver. We are both relentless self-developers and learners. And I think that's why, I think that would be an interesting series to do, is to download the knowledge of the stuff that we've developed, not just in terms of delivering training in an impactful way, how to think about starting a business differently, both in terms of from an enterprise development, economic development perspective, as well as for individuals starting. The list is absolutely huge, Al. And what I do know, I think one of the key reasons for me is you dragged me on an NLP course. No, I wasn't kicking and screaming, but I would never have found it. I didn't even know it existed. And you said, come on, let's go on this cool weekend with Paul McKenna and the co-founder of NLP, Richard Bandler. Let's go and see what we can learn, because we'll probably learn some stuff that will be able to help people on our courses. And I thought, yeah, that sounds cool. Let's go and do that. What I didn't realize at the time was I was in a bit of a pickle myself, what with one thing and another. And that set me on a completely different course. And I've had my ups and downs and my own challenges over the last 10 years. But that was my first glimpse of a different way of approaching personal development. And I actually think that the business and all of the learning experiences that we've had and what I've thrown myself into and how you've supported in different ways, I actually think it probably saved me. Do you know what I mean? So I'm so invested in this business because not only has it given me the financial capability to continue that learning journey, and I've done like some really serious high level stuff in the last sort of year, 18 months, which has been absolutely phenomenal and life changing in itself. But you know, the consistently teaching the same thing over and over again, which includes this not only business stuff but life stuff. Like if you've got to stand up and deliver that like several times a year to large audiences, you've got to really learn it yourself. And that's that old saying, isn't it? The fastest way to learn something is to teach someone else. So that in
because they
itself,
will pick holes in it. They will sit
I
there,
know,
pick
they
holes in
ask
what you're saying.
questions and all that, don't they?
Mhm.
Like, what on earth are you asking me difficult questions for? So we have to learn it, and those there isn't a single person that could come on one of our programs or courses and ask me a question that I wouldn't know how to handle now. Whether it's about life, business, whatever it is, whatever challenge is, like I know what to do next. I know how to approach it, and that is a massive privilege. And you know, I'm ever grateful to Rebel for being at the helm of it. Is just amazing.
I love that.
That was a really long answer. Do you wish you'd asked me like what your favourite football team is or something like that? You must be thinking, shut up, Simon.
Not really, because they're a rubbish team. Let's move on.
Ouch.
I think what I'd love to do now, because we're going to wrap up the episode with the key points, is what can people practically take away from our story to help them get going? And I think I'll start with the first one because this is what I've been dying to say. The success of Pop Up Business School and our business is directly related to how good we got at sales. If we didn't sell anything, we didn't get any people to help, we didn't get money coming in, we didn't get to do what we wanted to do, we couldn't afford to go on self-development courses. Sales is the lifeblood of our business. And I think even to this day in 2022, sales has a bad reputation and a bad name for being something that's actually not that good. But sales changes the world. And if you're listening to this right now and you have a dream, you want to help do something good, change something, sales is how you do it. And you might call it a different word. You might call it persuasion. You might call it influence. You might call whatever you want. I don't really care. But it's selling an idea. It's selling something. It's getting the resources to do something. Sales makes the world go round. And the better we have got at sales, when James, who sells a lot of our courses, now joined, and I remember going around the country with him on sales meetings, like sales changed everything for us, Simon. The only reason we are where we are now, like, yes, we had to deliver afterwards. And if you deliver well, then you resell and you get on it. You have to still deliver, but sales is where it all starts.
100%. I don't disagree with that at all. And in fact, I guess to build on that, the sales, like I never used to like sales because I didn't understand what it was. And I found it was hard. I found it hard to get out the starting block. I found it hard to make calls and send emails. And I had someone from our team message me about his side hustle a couple of days ago, and he sent me a message saying, I've got a reply, because I was coaching him in how to send a sales email. He said, I got a reply, and it said, thank you very much for your email, but we're too busy at the moment. We're not interested. Thank you. And he said, I hate rejection. I said, that isn't a rejection. You got a reply. It's not
You
the
got a
answer you
reply.
wanted, but when I see that message, I go, wow, you got a reply. And guess what? You only sent one email and you got one reply. That's unheard of. Don't send one email, you muppet. You got to send 50. That's what I did in the early days. In 2003, business number one, I sent one email, didn't get a reply, got depressed for 2 weeks and didn't do anything. I think that's the bit for me is that it is about sales, but it's also getting to love sales. And I think that's one of the things like this. I haven't got enough hours, and I'd sell all day if I had the time, because I absolutely love it now. Because that's because I understand my business, but I also, in particular, understand what sales is. Like you taught me in the early days, it's the transfer of excitement from one person to another. And if you're not excited about your business, nobody else is going to be. That to me is one of the reasons why we're so good at selling, is because we're pumped for what we do.
Because I know it makes a difference. Because I'm excited to get out there and make a difference. I want to do it. So that was one of the biggest things that I learned through that first period. So one of the most painful lessons I had launching Pop-Up Business School was learning how to sell, to grow the business and to make it happen. What else did you learn, Simon, through this first period?
I think looking back on that first period now, and it's only with the benefit of hindsight, really, and sort of a 10-year set of reverse binoculars. There's something about not being fixed on an idea of what your business may or may not become. Because I think, if we'd have even had a vision that was anything other than school, college, university, leaves hundreds of thousands of people behind and doesn't teach what people need to be successful in life. That was as far as the vision went, really. I think we had this idea of a
I wanted
business
to
course.
change how enterprise was taught. I wanted to change,
Yeah,
based
like
on
that
the
was
crap
really strong.
experience I'd had, I wanted to change the way this stuff was taught.
I think people get too hung up over the way that vision is going to be delivered. They confuse purpose with outcome, and I think what we did is we said, we're just going to sell one and see what we learn and see if we like it and see if it works and see if the customers, the client that sponsors it liked it, see if the people that came like it. And I remember just going all in on project number one without any expectation of there being a project 2 or 3. I mean, it would be cool, but I think lots of people start a business thinking, well, this is going to be my brand name, this is my shop front, this is my marketing strategy, this is my this and this is my that. I think so. Actually, starting with sales, have a dream, but go and sell one, because up until that point, it's fictitious. I think we made it real quickly. And I think that to me is the difference between what we did and what lots of people do when they get stuck because they don't get the results. We made it real very quickly with a sale. We're back to sales again.
So I think my closing message to everyone listening to this is, if you're listening to this going, I've always dreamt of this, I've always wanted to do this, or even if you've started a business, but you've ended up in a business you don't want to do and you're thinking, well, I want to change to this, just sell one, just make it real, just do one, just give one away. Like giving one away, doing it for free with someone will teach you whether you want to do it, whether they want to do it. It's the action piece. And as we've grown 10 years into running Rebel Business School now, I still come back to it, Simon. Action, making it real. For our 10-year anniversary, my dream was to do a course to teach people how to build an extraordinary life. And it was hard to get it going. It was hard to get action happening. Like everyone said, that's a great idea, but it was still like, okay, we've got to do it. We've got to make it. It's got to happen. And I find it fascinating that people find it so hard to start creating and make things real. And that's what I'd love to say to everyone out there. If you have an idea, if you have a dream, create it, build it, make it real, put it online, sell it. That is how you change your world and other people's worlds.
I love it, Al. I was just thinking, like, what if my closing thought would be is to don't go to a multiple food Asian buffet with pizza and lasagna in Milton Keynes. That, like, especially if you like going to Raffles in Singapore, that would be my main takeout.
Your main takeout is don't go for dinner with Alan if you like your life.
Do you know what? It's ever so funny you say that, because my old boss from Business Link, I invited him out for lunch shortly after I left Business Link. I said, "I come out for lunch," and he said, "No." I said, "Oh, right, okay." Like I said, "I'm paying." He said, "I don't want to come out for lunch with you." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because you're dangerous." He said, "If I go out for lunch with you, I'll get inspired to do things. Like, and I've got a really comfortable life, and I really like my house, and I'm kind of bought into my mortgage right now. And if I'm going to end up leaving my job to be a photographer or something." I went, "Yep."
Simon, we've got a lot more of the story to tell. We kind of dropped off at like 2013 or 14 when you came, whenever it was, 15 when you came back. And we'll do a second episode that tells more of the story of Rebel Business School, which I'm sure there will be lots more insights for everyone listening to this. I just want to say to everyone listening to the Rebel Entrepreneur podcast, thank you for joining on this journey. It's coming to the end of 2022. I'm so glad you've joined us on this journey. You listen to the podcast, you're here with us. A huge amount of you are on the extraordinary life course right now that Simon, my wife Katie, and I are running. You've been on Rebel Finance School, and our mission in 2023 is to continue to create cool content that inspires you and helps you create the life of your dreams. And I don't care whether that's building a business, getting your finances in order, traveling the world, or building a yurt at the top of a mountain and living with a goat. I don't care what your version of extraordinary is. We want to help you build it. Thank you for listening to The Rebel Entrepreneur. Simon Payne, thank you for choosing to come back and run this business with me and giving up on those drinks delivered to 5-star hotels.
There's still time. Thank you for having me back.
It's a pleasure. You are a legend. And to everyone listening, start to make it real. If you had an idea in your head, let's make it real. You can have any life you want to. Choose to build something cool. Choose to take action. Choose to work to make your dreams become reality. Stand out. Be different. Be yourself. Be a rebel entrepreneur.